On this week's episode, I'm joined by Pauline Foussel. Pauline is originally from France, but her work as an art manager and curator has taken her to Asia, brought her to Portugal for the first time, where she was involved in founding the famous Underdogs Gallery. Then, after almost 3 years in Hong Kong, she returned permanently to Portugal, where she got involved in the startup scene and founded Artpool, an NFT platform. We discuss, amongst other things, our first phones, curating for one of the world's most famous urban artists, her time in Asia, the groundbreaking Artpool platform, and the real reasons she came back home to Portugal. Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of Portugal, The Simple Life. And I'm delighted to be joined by Pauline Foussel. Pauline, thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Dylan. It's a pleasure to be with you.
How are you?
I'm good. Seated in my apartment in Lisbon, so all good.
Whereabouts in Lisbon? We don't want to get people to come to your street and knock on your door, but which part of the city?
I'm living in Campolide.
Campolide, okay, nice.
Yeah, near the Amoreiras.
Yeah, so a little bit quieter, not too busy.
Yeah, it's a nice neighborhood to be. It's not pretentious. There is everything around. You can go by foot like anywhere. But it's I have a really cool apartment. So for I think like 4 years. So I'm good in here. Yeah.
Very good. Pauline, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about you? Just a little bit about what you do, where you're from.
Yes.
Sort of background.
So I'm originally from France. I grew up there, did my studies, and then I decided to go to Asia. So I basically did a business school in France, and we had like in business schools you have like a gap year where you can do whatever you want for like a year, and I decided to go to Shanghai. So.
Wow.
I moved there. I basically did a business school, but all the internship I did were in the arts. So the project in Shanghai was a gallerist, a French gallerist. I did my first internship from business school, wanted to open up galleries there. So it was like really the first year of the gallery, the first installation and everything. And so I went back there. I was like 21 or something like this. I thought I would be like an intern, and I was actually the gallery manager. So it was pretty amazing. Like right there, I wasn't speaking a word. We didn't have smartphone at that time, so it was kind of crazy.
What year was that?
It was 2009.
Okay.
2009. And it was actually during the Universal Expo, in Shanghai, 2009, 2010. And so I stayed a year, and then I had to go back to finish my master. So I went back a little bit in France. Then I finished my studies in Montreal, in Concordia University. And then I was starting to look for a job. I really, really wanted to stay in America, but or Canada or the US, mainly the US. But in the end, the gallerist told me, "You can come back. I have you." So just packed my stuff and went back to Shanghai. And there I stayed. I thought really I was, settling down, and that I would stay 5 to 10 years in China. And I really, really love what was happening there in the arts. Was really like bubbling and like with a really crazy energy. But well, I've met a Portuguese artist, so you kind of follow the track. Alexandre Fart is well known as Vils. Came in a residency in Shanghai in January, February 2012. And so I was taking care of, like the whole residency with his team. So he went there to do a pretty big show, as well as like 7 murals in Shanghai. So I did the whole management of the project, helping him finding suppliers. He stayed more than a month and a half to really, create the works. in the streets for the gallery and so on. So it was really fascinating because I had to research like all the type of medium he wanted to do. And then like, so he came, I stayed a year more, but then he proposed me to come and, work for him and direct his studio. At that time, it was a team of 4 guys traveling around. There were no, settled studio. They were a bit in London. He had a small studio in London, but, nothing with what we were trying to settle here in Portugal. And so we came back to Portugal end of 2012. So there, together, we started settling the team and so on. And we also had brainstorm on a project that he had like kind of the beginning of what would become Underdogs. So today it's a gallery, public art program and editions in the city of Lisbon. But at that time, what he did was like 2 shows he curated, notably with like the galleries he's working with today, where the main point was to put the light on, the same, like his generation of artists, like painting in the streets and so on. So he had this in mind. And then as I was, working for a gallery, he had really great contacts with the municipality of Lisbon. Editions was something as well, like he really thought was something very relevant, which it is. So we kind of brainstormed and decided to create Underdogs, which is this triangle I was talking to you about. And we have still, until today, we still co-direct, choose the artist. So we are not in, let's say, in an executive role like we used to be, because 10 years passed, right? But we are still, curating together the project and creating the whole strategy and so on. So I've worked for him like almost 2 years. Then I stopped. I kept the gallery with him, and then I was asked by a collector in Hong Kong that wanted to launch his private art foundation. So I decided that it was a really interesting, challenge. I always wanted to work for a nonprofit. I really wanted to discover what was the work of a nonprofit. So, and Asia, I was missing Asia very much. I loved Portugal, but it was also not so easy at that time. 2013, 14 were hard years. And I think with Underdogs, we did something really energetic, let's say, but it was also me personally coming from Shanghai with so many friends, and here was a little bit harder. So, and in addition with the studio, we were traveling a lot and so on. So we were here, but a lot abroad as well. So I decided that would be a really great idea to go back to Asia. And what I've negotiated was to do back and forth. So I would do a month and a half, more or less, in Hong Kong, 2 weeks in Lisbon. And I did this for 2 years and a half.
Wow.
And in Hong Kong, I was director of development. So I was basically taking care of all the fundraising for the programming, for exhibition, public programs, and so on and so forth. So organized like gala dinners, auctions, the Friends of the Foundation, which was a membership program, sponsoring, anything you can think about that can potentially bring money to an art institution. And I stayed almost 3 years doing that until I got the idea of what would be the kind of the beginning of Artpool, and just decided like, I thought like, where do I go? And I didn't thought very long. I thought, Lisbon changed a lot because I had the chance to be back and forth for almost 3 years, and I could see the city changing. Like this energy of the people, maybe my generation that left the country during the crisis, started to come back, started to be like more entrepreneurial. They were a really cool vibe and a cool. I like the fact of going back and seeing the city kind of living again. And so I decided, okay, I'll settle here and I'll do the startup in Lisbon. In addition, it was great timing. Like Web Summit was I think was like there for a year or two. It was so 2017, end of 2017, I was back here.
Okay. Well, there's a lot to talk about, so we'll try unpack as much as possible. First question, and it's a bit random. You mentioned 2009, no smartphones. Did you have one of those flip phones? Those like cool. Was it that? Because that was 2009 was when everyone had a flip phone. That if you were cool, you had a flip phone. Did you have a flip phone?
No, I had better than this. Because in France, they were kind of this fashion thing of BlackBerry.
I had a BlackBerry as well, yeah.
And I really liked the fact that you had the
keyboard.
Like the keyboard, So that's what I had.
Wow. Okay, so you were very in front, because I had to wait a few years before I got a BlackBerry.
Really?
With the flashing red light when you knew you had a message. It was real cutting edge.
I know.
Can you remember your first mobile phone? Mine was an old Motorola and had you had to flip the mouthpiece down and you had to pull out the aerial. Otherwise you didn't hear the person speaking. Amazing.
Yeah, it's the very first one I got was like, it was later on that one. It was like a Motorola as well, but really small and with a really funny shape.
Now we're showing each other's age here, because yours was small and mine was the size of a brick, that's okay.
Not mine.
Vils is a phenomenal artist, and the urban art in Lisbon is world famous, and you were part of establishing that. But what does a studio for guys like that even look like? Because when you think of a normal art studio that you curate, it's it's walls with nice paintings. How does it even look for this kind of? Because his art is on a massive scale. It's, if people haven't looked at Vils' art, it's all natural raw materials on big walls, on paving. How do you even curate stuff like that? How did that even work?
Well, it's true. Vils is very well known for his public pieces, but that's just one part of the amazing talents he has, because he has many different media. Like he didn't start it with wool. He started with billboards. So he went in the street and he picked up those billboards that you stack. So he took that away and then he painted it all white, and then he started cutting with a knife like a face, so playing with the layers. He's always extremely consistent with his work, but he has many different type of works, which makes his works brilliant. And so he has a lot of works that goes in gallery settings or museums, so he doesn't just do walls or pavement. This is really just one part of his work. That is obviously the most known because it's what you see in the public space. But he is he has metal etched with acid. He has the billboards. He has carved doors. He has he's always developing hundreds of ideas, testing. So he has resins as well. But mainly his work is, how people relate to the urban environment, and he's gonna pick up different materials that comes from the city. So it can be concrete, it can be styrofoam, it can be wood doors that you have on the back of your on your bag. It can be metal that you find in construction. So it has it's always related to the urban space, but then you always have that link with the people inhabiting it, most of the time actually completely anonymous, and it's always to reveal I mean, most of the time is to reveal like the people with playing with the layers of the material, you know. I mean, we often say like he's a kind of urban archaeologist. So you know, you have so much work to do in a studio like his, because he has always like so many ideas to develop. I mean, he's an international artist, so you have projects from everywhere in the world, with very different type of, you know, organization of people. It's extremely rich. It's actually almost overwhelming, like the amount of projects that reach out to him, you know.
Yeah. How have you seen sort of the landscape with urban art? Because I mean, you've seen it sort of beginning to what it is now in a place like Lisbon. How have you seen that development and that change?
Well, I've seen it change very much, and I think we are a big part of it, because with Underdogs, I think we did more than 50 murals in the city, so it's a lot, and it's not necessarily small scale. But I think it was, you know, mainly due to the municipality who understood very early like the potential of art in the streets. And this is like, having worked with them for so many years, it's really that vision of you know, of almost creating how do you say, kind of an image of Lisbon, right? Like they understood the potential of that, and I think today Lisbon is one of, like, you know, I mean, I don't know if it's one of the most visited, but I know that urban art is one reason that, you know, it stays in people's head as well.
For sure.
And it was, you know, to give the space to artists who didn't necessarily have spaces yet in museum, in gallery spaces. So it changed very much, because you had more and more projects, more and more artists willing to paint in the streets. And as it wasn't so difficult to get authorization, because the municipality had even created a department for it, you know. So it's named GAU, Galeria de Arte Urbana, and it's a department that is dedicated to the art industries of Lisbon. And you don't have a lot of municipalities that, you know, that understand the potential of this for a city, you know.
And then also, I mean, for Lisbon, I suppose in Portugal as well, you were here sort of pre and post crisis. And then you mentioned how when you first came, it was a little bit difficult, and then you came back, things had changed a little bit and were a bit more appealing for you to come across. Talk about the change that you saw and that shift that you saw that brought you back.
So here it's going to be more personal, I think.
Sure.
But again, I was coming from a very you know, thriving city, right? Like China in 2010 was like booming. So many projects happening, so many people, you know, like involved, and specifically in the arts. But I don't know, you had that intangible, right, like thing that was happening, and it was extremely motivating. In addition, when you start a career and you're 22, 23, you know, you are looking for something where there is excitement and things happening and things to discover. And it's true that when I moved here, it felt a little bit sad, you know, like it's what I felt. Like I felt people that was sad, but it was okay. It's with my eyes when I was 23. I don't know how I would feel today, but I could feel like people wanted to do things, but they were not having the means to do it.
Yeah.
And I also felt like I was telling you, like a big part of my generation, right, that, you know, our builders and so on, they decided to go away, you know, like they went away for finishing their studies, potentially find their first work. And this was, I mean, I don't know, it wasn't, I don't have a concrete example. It was really what I felt, you know, it's what I felt at that time. But I was also really fascinated by that city, you know, that was so beautiful. And at the same time, like, you could see those massive buildings. And I always had like a very high sensibility for architecture and abandoned places. And I was like there is so many potential, and this is all like being crumbling, and this is so sad. So it was like, you know, it wasn't easy, but at the same time, I think like what really was motivating was to, work with definitely one of the biggest artists of that country. So we were also, I was telling you, traveling a lot and have a lot of international projects. And I think as well with underdogs, right? Like we would have done underdogs in Shanghai, we would have certainly not have the same impact. So it was also because the situation was the way it was, that we had also this potential and impact, because we were bringing, a fresh new project that artists, like we were like paying for, producing their work. So like you could kind of re-inject like the means to create in a way, right? And I think like this definitely had a big impact on what we have built as well, which was interesting to be part of as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. You hear a lot of these kind of stories. We've had a guy on the podcast called Ricardo Marval. I don't know if you know him. He was very much involved in the startup movement. He was one of they talk about him as one of the godfathers of the startup movement in Lisbon, because at that time, and he also speaks about the same thing, where you had a lot of talent and a lot of talented people, but nothing to kind of bring it all together and make a movement out of it. You're coming back. You mentioned that at the beginning it was the start of Web Summit. You've spoken at Web Summit, I think last year. Yeah. Are you on the stage this year again?
I don't know yet.
Okay. Come on, guys, get Pauline on there. If you're listening, yeah. But I mean, how did you? I mean, that was an exciting time to be back in Lisbon. Did you know that it was going to be the beginning of what it is now in terms of how everything's developed and evolved as a startup community, as a tech community with all these different businesses and movements?
Honestly, no. I was always not in that world, to be very honest with you. Mm-hmm. I told you I've worked in the art world. The startup was not part of my world. So I discovered it by building, right? So, and I started to, understand the ecosystem and how it works, what are the different key players. So no, I have to be very honest with you. The reason why I came back wasn't because of the startup ecosystem. I came back for the country, for what's the city is, what the nature is. The fact that, I had more than 10 years, like moving everywhere, being in like those megalopole cities in Asia. I wanted somewhere, because I had a feeling of what it would be to build up a startup, and I needed a space that can counterbalance it. And for me, like this city is very peaceful. There is, like something very stupid that I realized, that there is no advertising, which was not the case in Hong Kong, where it's like everywhere. Like consumption is everywhere, and here it's not. Like there is other things to look at. There is not this pressure. You're not in a very robotic environment here, which is something that I needed to survive. Like the startup world and building up and funding such a project. So that's why I came back. It wasn't because of I ended up being here and realizing that, well, that's a really great place to be for that. And crypto went afterward, which was even a good surprise. But my choice was for really the love of the country. Mm-hmm.
It's so funny that you mentioned the advertising. We had a guy previously on the podcast, a guy called Pedro Bushrimens. He's one of the directors of SICK, the TV station, and he had a real moan and complain about the amount of advertising and signboards. Maybe we just need to, that you have here in Portugal. Maybe we should send him to Hong Kong, Pauline, for real bombardment. It's different, right?
I can tell you that this was my break for 3 years. When I was coming back here, I was like, oh, finally a place where I'm not pushed to buy things every second. Amazing, you know. So yeah, it's always very relative, right?
What now, looking back and as you know, Pauline, today, what are some of the things you appreciate about, what are the other things that you appreciate about being here when you think about life then and moving around and then coming back and almost kind of like coming home, kind of like coming back to somewhere grounded? What are some of the things that you appreciate about this country?
It's totally coming home fast. Like I really, it's my home. What do I love the most? I love the light, which can sound maybe a little bit, but there is a light in this city that is incredible. And again, I think it's a more energetic than anything. Is this kind of peaceful environment, safe environment. You know, like you can, I don't know, like it's not like big cities and I mean, it's a big city because it's not a small city either, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like this huge pressure of big cities. And I really loved big cities and I still love going, but like living, I like this ambience here. So I would say that's, and the sea, right? Like the ocean, like it's still a capital of a country. Like I'm living here, I'm like in 20 minutes, I can be in front of a breathtaking beach and ocean. Like there is not a lot of places like this. And I know it's what everyone says, but the truth is, you know, that's also, you know, we have one life, so it's better to be in a place that, you know, that fit to you and fit to your needs, right? And I think like the ocean is one of them. The lights is another, you know. So then there is many not great things I can say about Portugal because when it's your home, there is things you love, things you don't like, and I think it's everywhere. But I think this is the most the greatest things for me here, and people as well. Like I think, you know, like I speak Portuguese. It's easy for me in a way, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have a big connection between France and Portugal. There's been a connection for many years. Communities are both in both countries. What were some of the differences for you with the way that people interact here and be?
I think it's very different. You know, you can't compare. I think Portuguese came in France a while back because actually my best friend, she's the first generation to be born in France. So her parents were from the Azores, so they are 80 now. So it's very different from the immigration of French people here that has happened for the past 7-10 years, you know. So nothing to compare in some ways. And as well, to be talking with my Portuguese friends when they tell me the Portuguese from France are coming back to Portugal, it's nothing to see either. So, but the truth is, I think we, you know, in France we had a lot of Portuguese friends, but we wouldn't even know it because my generation is the generation like is the third generation actually, you know. So it's not even like it was not even mentioned. To be honest. So, and here, well, the French people who moved here, I mean, I know some French people that have been there for a long time, actually. But then it's a completely different move, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, what do you think people are coming here for, from your perspective, from France to Portugal?
I think it's not too far from what I said myself, but the
Mm-hmm.
second is, I think, investment in stone. I think from what I can see from the people I've been meeting here and so on, is there is a passion of French people for old buildings. Whatever we say, we love to renovate, and I think, like, of course, you had this incentive, for actually, I don't even know, because I'm not even concerned, but I know there were some incentive to invest here for retired people and stuff as well. So, and definitely that, how to inject money in the country, that was one of them, while also, and I thought it was pretty smart, while as well, like, renovating, and I think that's part of this as well, like the real estate for French people, where and we hear a lot about it, and we had a lot of criticism, but at the same time, what I feel is, like, what's being done is also respectful of the country, and really the people that I know that are in real estate, they are conscious of this and are looking, for Portuguese artisan, for, like, there is, like, this real respect of the tradition as well, but there is like a lot of cliche about the French who moved to Portugal, but I think, like, the people that I've met are, have been contributing, and
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to contribute in a very positive way, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think, but I think you see this across the board. Maybe not in a place like the Algarve, but certainly Lisbon and in other areas of Portugal, you see people coming, and they don't necessarily want it to change. They're coming because they like it the way it is, the country, the town, the culture, the way of life.
Yeah,
And I do think, maybe besides the language, I do find the French come and they do appreciate, you
really.
know
Yeah.
being here, and the way that the way of life, and that kind of thing. So definitely, I
Hmm.
agree with you. I agree with you on that. Pauline, are you an artist yourself? Do you do anything creative?
No, not really.
Okay, so for you, this all
um
sort of the arranging and organizing behind the scenes.
Yeah, I've been always feeling I would be more helpful to artists than being an artist myself. Probably, I would have it somewhere inside myself, but I think I have more talent to be in an ecosystem around the artist than doing it myself. So yeah,
Okay,
I've decided to not cross that limit.
not yet.
Um,
Maybe one day.
I don't know. No, I would love to write, but visually create, I'm not sure.
I mean, we've had urban artist on the podcast before, Vanessa Teodoro,
Hmm.
and she spoke about how doing, sort of, and she does big murals. Um, and one of the things that she spoke about was just there's always seems to be a genuine sort of openness and curiosity here, with regard to art, and what people are doing and what people are creating. And she said, from murals to smaller works, there's this genuine, even with old people, they are genuinely curious, with what people are doing with the space and what people might be doing with a wall or a piece of art. What has your experience been with that in Portugal? I want to get onto the NFT stuff as well at some stage, but what has your experience as a curator been with that openness to creativity and art here?
Yes, for the public art, because this is also where it's easier to touch people. In terms of in art spaces, I think it's harder to, of course, like, if you do paint in the street, you're gonna have more people coming to you and being curious and so on. The moment you put it in four white walls, it's harder for people to come in, but it's not specifically Portugal here. It's everywhere. But and I would say, like, art can really have an impact on communities wherever you are, and if you work on specific communities, specific subjects, like, you always have curiosity of people. That's what art is meant to be as well. So I would agree on that. Then on the canvas and stuff, I think it's also another crowd. You know, of course, it's infused curiosity, but it's different, I think.
Okay, let's talk about Art Pool.
Yes.
How did this all start? How did this happen? I'm going to ask some questions. Please ignore my ignorance because there's some things in this world that I have no idea. So I'm learning a little bit as well as we go along.
No,
but tell us a little bit about Art Pool and how it all started.
So it all started as a social network for the art world, but for art curators. So art curators is, look, what I've been doing for Underdogs, right? Like you work very closely with the artists, you discuss a lot, you challenge them, you push their concept forwards. Then you work on the concept of an exhibition, you do a lot of research about a specific movement and so on and so forth. So basically started like this. So it's a social network for curators. They apply, we select, and they have their profile and they can post. It's kind of a LinkedIn, right? And why did you talk about NFTs? But because we have been we added an NFT marketplace to the platform. I'm just going to explain why first, but one of the main problems that the curators were raising, because we talked to almost all the curators of the platform for like the past 4 years, it was, how can you help us, create a digital revenue? How can you help us fundraise for projects? And so when we dive into, the Web3 space and we looked into NFTs, we thought it could be a very brilliant tool for that. And that's it. So an NFT, just to explain what it is, because I think we hear a lot about that.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What is an NFT?
It's basically a way to certify and own a digital asset. So all of a sudden, thanks to that technology, we don't need to understand how it works. I don't think that's the necessary, but the utility of this is all of a sudden you can own a video, you can own a photography, and there is like kind of a limited rarity to that specific digital asset. So it can be a PDF, it can be anything digital, basically. So that's what it means. So it's like now you can buy and you can create online an image that is rare. Before we would be sending it to everyone, and you could not have a value in an image, right? And you could not, I could not create it and you wouldn't buy it from me. It would be about the rights. Now we are talking almost like a network. So it's like, if you want to have it in parallel, it could be like, you have this painting is unique because I'm the only one to have it on my wall. Well, here it's the same. You are now able to say that video or that image is absolutely unique and you are the only one to have it on your wallet, on your crypto wallet.
Okay, so it's different to having something where, like a royalty image where, okay, someone can, 20 people can use it and pay a royalty towards it.
It's different.
This is digital, but no one else can look at it.
No, you can send it to everyone. You are just going to be the only one to have the value and the ownership of it.
Okay.
If you have bought it, of course, right? If
you bought it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's being able to own a digital asset, which wasn't the case. No one was owning an image before, We all could share it.
So it's more than owning the rights; it's owning the actual.
The value is the value of the digital assets is you can own it now.
Okay, so that's
you still have the idea of the rights and so on. You can still, the artist can still decide to sell the rights, right? It's like a painting. You can have an image of the painting and the rights belong to the artist, except if you sell them. But the paintings still belong or to the artist or to the collector. This remains. If you want, it's just a think painting. Well, here it's digital, but it's still owning just one painting. But it could be an edition. It's just you have the rarity, okay, and the ownership of it.
Wow. Okay. So Art Pool is a place for all of these artists who create NFTs to network.
No, so basically our pool is so curators. We work very closely with the artists. So now we have more than 900 around the world. Each curator works with hundreds of artists. And basically the curators are selecting the artists to create artworks that are sold via this technology, via the NFT technology. Okay. Thanks to blockchain. And this is by buying it, you're supporting the artist, you're supporting a project that can be from a curator, like an exhibition and so on. So collectors are collecting, but also increasing value in terms of, the CV of the artist and so on, because the NFT you are buying is also supporting, for example, an exhibition in real life, like physically. And collectors can get access to, the artist profile, the curator profile, the gallery profile, because you have the social network behind. So you can check like the post of each of them and get to know better their work,
Wow. Okay. How is being here? You've spoken about on a personal level why you love being in a place like Lisbon. How is being in Lisbon good from a business perspective in this world? How is it beneficial for you?
Well, like in terms of startup, there is a lot of things happening. There is like, we have been accelerated by a really great VC here that is named Indico Capital Partner that has been, supporting us and so on. So there is a good ecosystem here and really people like building it. And then in terms of crypto, well, you had more and more people coming, more and more crypto, investors, and as well people building in the Web3 space, which is really great because you have events and you can meet each other and you can kind of brainstorm on what to do next and potential collaborations as well. I was in a talk last week at the embassy, and I've met a girl that was working on an NFT project 3 days before. I told her, if you want to come and you join me on the talk, like there is many connections and people that became my friends as well, that are working in the crypto space and that lives here and that moved here like not long ago. So it's a good place to be honest, for networking and collaborating and so on.
Okay. Coming back to Portugal, have you managed to travel the rest of the country and see some other parts of the country that you liked?
Yeah, of course. I've been, I didn't do the whole country, but I think I've been in enough places. I mean, in many places. But I'm also, 10 years I've been in many places in Portugal, so I never know and I never remember names anyway. Like one last beautiful discovery I did, which was like maybe 2 months ago on a Sunday. It's not far from Lisbon, but I was, 9 years here and I was ignoring that place, which is Azanias do Mar, which is like you feel like you are in Greece or something. It's like really incredible and really beautiful. But then I don't know, I love Porto. I love going to Porto. Then I really love as well going in Alentejo. I think Montemor, for example, is really beautiful. Evora is beautiful. Been to Marvão as well, which is smaller and further, but there is many beautiful places, and I really like I think we hear a lot about the coast, but the countryside is extremely beautiful. Like near Coimbra as well is pretty beautiful. Gerês, I never been, but it's like my top first one to go. I really want to go. Yeah, the truth is I don't have much time. So I usually stay into a certain area, and it has been a while. I didn't go to Algarve or even to Porto. It has been a while now. So it's I'm mainly in Lisbon though.
What do you? Having traveled to so many different countries in the world. You've got Portuguese friends. You've worked and collaborated with a lot of Portuguese people. What do you think that they should be proud of with their own country?
That's a tough question. What should they be proud of? I think creativity. I think they have really amazing artists and people like with really good know-how. And sometimes I'm a little bit sad in my heart because I think like they would have a lot of potential to make this known elsewhere. And I feel it's not done as the level it should because this is so good, you know. And I think like, you know, bottom line, it's also what we have been carrying in ourselves with Underdogs. It's also showing like how amazing, like, you know, your emerging artists from here should be seen and should be, you know, traveling, represented, and show their work to a greatest amount of people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, yeah, it's what I feel. I feel like they should be really proud of the creativity and know-how they have here and export it, ideally.
It's an interesting name that you guys chose for the gallery, Underdog.
It's not me.
Okay. Where did it come from? Do you know?
Yeah, it was Alex that did the first shows. I named it Underdogs. And you know, it's the people that are not meant to be the winners, right? But they win.
It's interesting. It's interesting when you talk about, you know, sort of these artists that should have a bit more exposure and they're almost like underdogs.
But it's not only the artists. I really think it's wine. It's you know, artisan working with so many amazing stuff and doing really like it's just like it's difficult to, but you have this foundation, you know, and you have some countries who don't have it, you know. So I think they should be proud of that.
Very nice. Pauline, one thing that you want people to remember and take away from our conversation. Just one thing.
Just one thing for people to remember and take away. Welcome and discover Portuguese artists, let's say, and can introduce you some really cool artists creating here. So remember that there is really cool heart in here and good people working on building this space here. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, speaking of introducing us to good artists and creativity, how can people follow you and online and stay in touch?
So online, on Instagram, Pauline Fossel. I'm on Twitter as well, Fossel Pauline, so almost the same. And you can check Artpool, which is artpool.xyz, the website, so you can have a look. And that's where you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Like I'm like in every single social media, so you can definitely find me.
I didn't even know until the other day that there was a .xyz. I had no idea.
You have dots of everything.
I see that now.
Yeah,
I see that now.
No, you
but
have
I never knew there was a .xyz. That's
awesome. Crypto project, it's .io or .xyz.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you so much. A question that we ask all of our guests: Portugal, the simple life. Why?
I already replied to this in the end. I mean, I've said it from the start. That's because that's a simple life, that it's beautiful. You know, you have the necessary to be a happy person here, you know, so definitely.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Dylan.
And I'm going to let you call it.
I leave.
That's what you say. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Okay, sorry.
That's
all
okay.
right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care.
Ciao, ciao.
So thank you once again to Pauline, and thank you to all of you for listening. Please subscribe, share with your friends, give us a thumbs up, and please leave a comment or a review. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And as we say in Portugal, sejas bem-vindo. Welcome to the simple life.